Welcome to Thinking Outside the Soil with your host, Shani Alfalfa Seed, where we get to talk story and touch on topics about hydroponics and the farmers who grow the crops and creatures we need to eat. Good morning, and hello from Blooming Health Farms, and thank you for being with me on this beautiful day. Today I want to share with you a very special recording. I recently had the pleasure and opportunity to give the keynote address at the Aquaponics Association's virtual conference on April 15, 2024. I did a presentation called Aquaponics in the Coop, which talks about how we are using our aquaponics and hydroponics processes to be better chicken farmers. So for those of you that love audio, please do have a listen into the hour and 8-minute presentation. But for those of you that are more visually inclined, I have posted the video on YouTube. So please do enjoy. Thank you. Take care. And you have a lovely day. Good morning, and welcome everyone from wherever you may be. I've invited everyone to let me know where you may be from in the chat there, so please do jump in, share where you're from. I am in Greeley, Colorado, so that is in northern Colorado. For those that may not be in the United States, Colorado is centrally located, Rocky Mountain regions. So today's presentation is called Aquaponics in the Coop. And really it's about how thinking outside the soil helps us all be better stewards. And again, my name is Sean Short, and I am the executive director here at a nonprofit called Blooming Health Farms. We use hydroponic fodder, and we use it to feed livestock. We have been doing this for a few years now, and it has just taken us by storm. So I thought it'd be a good boilerplate to show you a little bit of the critters that we've worked with and worked around, and that we do feed out some of our stuff with. Now, for those of you out there, I've alluded that we are chicken farmers, and I love to ask this joke. Now, I don't normally get to do this virtually, so this is the first time. So forgive me for it being what it is. But what do you think the most asked or most joked about thing is with the chicken farmer, or as a chicken farmer? What do you think might be the number one question I get out there? And I hear this all the time. So many people out there will say, like, Sean, tell me, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Right? It seems like it's the oldest, silliest joke. Well, I always say the rooster always comes first. So we are working with a lot of different individuals out there. So I want to tell you a real quick story about our first homesteaders that we've been working with. Ethan and Shay are some farmers here in Greeley. And when we were looking to expand some of our chicken operations and telling everybody about these really great things that we were doing with aquaponics and chickens, I said, hey, I have this really great way to grow a lot of feed in a small space. How would you guys like to grow chickens? And so Ethan and Shay and I went on this mission and journey to turn their homestead into a little bit of a dream for them. So we actually say that we're out there pimping their homestead. What we do really is pimp people's farms or pimp people's homesteads. Now, I know that word pimp out there can sometimes have some negative connotation. So we've really been using that word, and I want to introduce it to those people out there because I know many of you fall right in this category. We are trying to farm differently and innovatively. So we say those that are pimping, or we call it chicken pimping, are trying to do things as innovatively as they can. And it really just means to make things better. If any of you have ever seen that show, Pimp My Ride, or anything like that, We're just trying to help these people make their things better. Really, at Blooming Health Farms, our mission is to grow food and grow people. We help kids that are involved with the criminal justice system by teaching them agricultural entrepreneurship. So it's a fancy way of saying that we're kind of like a 4-H for felons, and we're able to help those individuals find purpose, find life skills, and improve their overall mental well-being. This is so that we can really help them contribute back to the community. If you're interested in learning more about us, go ahead, pull your phone out, and you can scan that QR code, and it'll go to our homepage. But for those of you that might have your phone up right now, I do have a couple rules. I know we are online, but I know cell phones can be very distracting. So while you got it, pull it up, put on your do not disturb, put it down, put it aside, just so that I can spend as much time with you that you can spend with me. I've got a lot of content, so I might go quick. If you have any questions or anything like that, please do put them in the chat. I will address them all at the end. I'll do a little live Q&A, time permitting. And then, of course, if I need to go offline, I'm more than happy to answer any questions as well. So, yeah, let's just go ahead, and I'm going to jump into a little bit about who we are, talk about some aquaponics, and then we'll do a little bit of Q&A at the time for what we can. So we are saving money and time by using aquaponics and combining it with our chicken farm operation. We are an egg-laying farm, and those are our eggs. By feeding this combination of really highly nutritious live feed every day and some traditional chicken feed, we get these amazing eggs. And those eggs on the right are both high-quality organic eggs. The one on the left, the brown egg, are our eggs from our chickens, and the other one is a high-quality organic, $9 a dozen on the shelf. And just the size comparison and the quality comparison inside is a world of difference. But most importantly, by using aquaponics, we are able to save almost 30% on our feed costs compared to if we were not using aquaponics to help us raise chickens, which is pretty neat, right? But the other thing is that we are able to do this in a relatively short amount of time. 100 chickens in 30 minutes, done. And I know that might sound crazy, right? But we are doing things differently, as I said, so there are going to be some controversial sounding things that I may say, but I assure you there's a lot of really great things, and you've probably seen a lot of really new novel things as you've been exploring hydroponics, aquaponics, and these other really great things out there. So this is an example of the small space where we are, where Ethan and Shay that I showed you at the beginning are doing their grow out for their feed. They have this relatively small space. This is one of those small shelves where they're able to produce about 12 pounds of live feed every single day on a regular basis. And this is their small space. This is not all 100 chickens. It's a challenge to get all the chickens in one picture sometimes, but this is part of their flock. And we've turned up that pole barn and a small space into a really productive area. So really today for this presentation, for this conference, my big goal, and for all of us out there, is to really help those farmers who want to save water and be able to grow premium livestock products. Now, we are doing, many of us out there, aquaponics, and I think we tend to forget that the fish in our systems are a livestock component. So I want to just put it out there that that's the whole goal of all of us coming together, is to be able to collaborate and help each other to be better farmers. And really without having extra costs and being able to have better margins in the end. The name of the game is business for many of us. And in order for some of us to even do research, we need to be able to have things coming in so that we can do the work. So today I'm going to just cover what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how hydroponic chickening saves water, saves land, how the aquaponic chickening that we're doing is also saving the environment, and how aquaponic chickening gives you more bang for your buck. Who am I? Who is Sean Short? I mentioned at the beginning that I am the co-founder of Blooming Health Farms, which is a 501c3 here in northern Colorado, and we're helping at-risk youth, the ones involved in the criminal justice system, stuck in jail, stuck in probation, to teach them ag entrepreneurship. And I have recently published a book called Thinking Outside the Soil, which talks a lot about what I am presenting here today. So you guys are pretty lucky that I'm going to just unpack some of the really neat details, but this book is available on Amazon and the other platforms, also thinkingoutsidthesoil.com. We recently made #1 on the Kindle, so I'm pretty excited to see that people are out there trying to do things differently than they were in the past. And we've done it in a couple different categories, which was pretty cool. So if you did pull your phone out and you weren't listening to me, there's another QR code there for you to scan. You can check that out on theirs. Physical, digital, and audiobook as well. Some of us read it differently. And then there's some articles out in the Fence Post, which is a pretty good agricultural thing that talks a lot about what we're doing. And I am a member of the Wild County Colorado State Extension Advisory Board, so I like to try to give back some of my aquaponic and hydroponic knowledge in a very traditional agricultural place. We have a lot of cows, we have a lot of corn, we have a lot of onions, so hydroponics is not as familiar in our area. And I taught a class, and I teach a class called Hydroponic Fodder for Chickens, and it's a grant-funded class that was funded by SARI, the Western SARI here in Colorado. And we do a little bit of poultry management, biosecurity, and then really dive into how to use the aquaponics and the hydroponics to get really great results from our chickens. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself as well. I originally thought that I wanted to be a Marine when I was young and graduating from school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I enlisted in the Marine Corps, hoorah, right? And I thought that was my path. But I had to convince my grandpa, who was in the Army. He was a lieutenant colonel, and fortunately he gave me a good blessing, and I joined the military, but I was like, I'm going to go have fun off in the mountains before I go sign my life away. So I did this thing called delayed entry and wanted to be a field radio operator, but I headed off to that beautiful place there, Breckenridge, Colorado, for a short amount of time before I was going to go give my life away. I was a ski lift attendant. I just wanted to be a ski bum, wanted to have fun. However, I did not realize that at that time, I had a lot of other challenges. And one of them was that I really liked to drink. I was a young kid who loved alcohol, and later on it was a huge challenge for me. I've been in and out of a lot of places, but I broke my back because I was trying to steal a keg. And there is a paper in the Summit Daily from 2004 that talks about how I was being dumb, and I was told that I would never walk again and that my life was over. And fortunately for me, some of these things that I'm sharing with you now have really catapulted me to being where I am today. And it was this plant right here, this tomato, this hydroponic tomato that I saw growing in the Epcot Center that totally revolutionized my life and eventually led me to meeting some of the others in our industry to fall in love with hydroponics, fall in love with aquaponics, and really just get nerdy in all of these areas. So my call was hydroponics. I wanted to grow more plants like that tomato. So this was my first hydroponic system. And it was, for lack of better words, pretty pitiful. It was something that I was trying to figure out, trying to do. So I took what I could and grew some vegetables and started to grow hydroponic tomatoes. And I eventually said, hey, I got to figure out how to do this better. So I went off to the University of Hawaii to study aquaponics. And yes, that was my view every single day. So I'm really grateful that I got to learn aquaponics in an island setting. And if you get an opportunity, there are other presentations that talk about using aquaponics in the island. So please do, if that touches you, check out those. Some of them will really share some really neat things. Us that lived or learned about aquaponics on the islands got a really unique view of what it means to use this technology in our lives. And while I was there, I got to learn from this gentleman named Dr. Harry Ako, who convinced me to get a degree in molecular biology. I thought I was just going to be a fish farmer and surf, but I got nerdy with Dr. Ako and started to show other farmers how to do things differently, specifically if the boat doesn't come. So if you're from an island or if you're not, you're reliant on transportation, outside information. And so if that's not coming, how are you going to be self-sufficient? And we have learned aquaponics is one of the solutions. And there are lots of other answers out there, but he helped me share that knowledge so that I could teach others. And the whole idea was to come back to Colorado and show others how I could do these different things. I wanted to grow tomatoes and eventually got into using hydroponics to grow feed when I saw these huge cost savings and other things. However, it wasn't always so easy. While I was going through that, I struggled with alcohol. I said that before, but I looked for a lot of my answers early on at the bottom of the bottle. And I wore a lot of metal bracelets. I have a lot of mugshots. And unfortunately, the places I spent a lot of time were cold, they were dark, and they also got to teach me a lot about how I can use these ideas of sustainability and resiliency in agriculture and in other areas of my life so that I could make a greater impact than I ever thought was even possible. I began planting everything and sharing with everyone out there how to grow plants. And I love, these are just some of the things I love. I love cherry tomatoes. A kid captured that picture there of me tasting a tomato. And I just like to try to propagate every single plant, taking that portos and other things in other areas. So it's just something that I really love to do. I love propagating and everything like that. I also participate in off-road triathlons. So I told you that I was destined to never walk again. And now I'm blessed with the abilities to still be able to use my body and brain and go out and do things that are hard and challenging for me and push me and make me grow. And I love it. I'm great that I get to do that. Though it is a challenge, it's hard. So for any of you out there, please do go try something new and hard for you, especially when you were told you're not able to or can't do it. And one of those things that I did was I never thought that I was going to go to college. And now I am finishing up my graduate education in systems engineering at Johns Hopkins, which I am super excited to use in all of the avenues of my education and to share it with other individuals out there in the life. And specifically, I've been able to do it to get really healthy, happy chickens that give us this really great product. The farm, Blooming Health Farms, has had its own journey as well. And we got started in 2019 when we were searching for a way of how to give back. And I met this other gentleman there named Ryan, who's a clinical counselor. And we wanted to figure out how to give back to our community better. And he said to me, he said, Sean, did you know that in our county where we have all these cows and food, that 1 in 5 people don't have enough food to eat, not enough good, nutritious food? And he said, you know what? When people are hungry, they make really poor choices. And it's probably no surprise that one of the highest youth crime rates in the country happens to be here in our county. And I want to figure out how to farm and help these kids and other people differently, but I don't know how to farm. And I raised my hand and said, hey, I know about this thing called aquaponics, and I would love to try to figure out. So we literally took everything we could and everything we had and got that little simple whiteboard and threw together all this stuff and went to the first farmers market we could get into. And people loved this idea of what we were trying to do. We were trying to use agriculture to take kids out of the criminal justice system and give them job skills, give them better mentorship than they were getting in their other areas. So we just took what we had. We turned my house actually into an urban farm. So I have a 1/4 acre property where I am currently right now giving my presentation. That is our urban farm model where we're doing our program development and education. And we've been able to utilize the assistance of some of Ryan's private clients, some of the kids with the school district here, and those that are doing community service for our local court system. We attend farmers markets and other marketing events. We've been able to have blessed with some interns that are not necessarily involved with the criminal justice system. So bringing in young kids that are going into college or first getting into college, or kids that don't really know what they want to do before they go into those high school avenues, like this kid here holding the tomato, or this gentleman here who was a dropout, who's actually one of the inspirations for why we got into chickens. And it was Kwani here who was helping me try to learn about aquaponics, and I was struggling to teach him how to grow tomatoes, how to do everything that I needed to do water chemistry with aquaponics. And so I said, hey, go take care of chickens. And I saw transformation immediately with this kid. He leaned into it, and I think it's because the chickens are a lot better teachers than I am. But he fell in love with this, and so he helped me build fence. We started with a few chicks, and we said, hey, I've got to figure out how to do this all the time. So that's him there doing our sprouting method, and in a couple days, I was able to teach him how to get live feed for our chickens every day, where it took me weeks to not teach him how to do aquaponics, if that kind of makes sense. And he'd go out there every single day that he worked and just feed these chickens the live feed and then go out and take care of them. Rain, shine, snow, all of it. And it was great to see him do that. And it really led us into doing more with in integrating our aquaponics operation with chickens. So we now sell a high quality organic chicken feed and make our own blended scratch grain and sprouting mix, which is highly nutritious. It's high in omegas and vitamin A's and C's and everything like that. We also do a program where we're able to bring chickens into people's lives. If they don't want the long-term commitment of chickens, we have this program called Rent the Chicken and Hatch the Chicken, where people can have a done-for-you type system, and then we give them all of the tools and stuff they need, and then take back the chickens because they're probably not ready for all of those. And with that, we've been able to do what we're essentially calling our agricultural entrepreneurship, but more specifically, it's really a STEM education and workforce development. And this is the kid that I'm currently mentoring right now, named Junior. So we're doing all the things that we need to do to run a commercial chicken farm. And that is includes everything from hatching chickens from the eggs, as you saw the incubator earlier slide, to getting those actual eggs and everything that the chicken needs from the time they hatch to they're about 5 months old and that. And there's a lot that you have to unpack from a scientific perspective. There's a lot that you have to unpack from a job development perspective. And then we're learning even more and more how great of therapists chickens really are. Don't tell the mental health therapist that. But these chickens are showing us a lot of different things. So we do the hands-on stuff, but then also the business aspects of what it means to be a chicken farm. So as many of you may know, farming is a big enterprise and business is very much a part of that. So we are able to integrate some of those things. We also do community service for the local court system. So it's called useful public service is our term here. And we do what would traditionally look like community service, where we'll go out on the street and pick up trash. And we do this as a way to really kind of break down some of those initial barriers, those authoritative barriers that can happen when kids get assigned to do community service. So I go out there with them and I pick up trash and we just talk about our experiences, who Blooming Health Farms is, some of the things that are out there. And I get to joke about, hey, did you eat this kind of candy or do you eat these sodas? And it lets me really just break down those barriers so that we can actually go in and give these kids values. And a lot of what we do is get them to help us do the things that are important to allow the operation to move forward, but also give value to the kids. So we have a chicken farm, and part of that is getting more chickens. Just like in our aquaponics, when we need to get more fish, we get more fish. So we had to build a brooder here recently, and I was able to utilize almost 100% these kids' efforts to build this chicken brooder out of pieces that we were able to source right there on the property that we're using with some new purchase stuff. Kids are out there just digging with post hole diggers, using drills and hammers for their first time, and they built this structure, which is actually really, really solid for what it's doing. And inside there's actually more chickens than that now. But they're little baby pullets, and they have all of the things that they need to set up. And a lot of that is because we are doing a little bit more than community service here. We are taking some of our workforce development concepts, and I believe that some of these kids could use more than just community service. And so if I were to never see any of these individuals again, the most valuable thing I could do is teach them customer service, teach them some of these things. So we do this thing called a Make You Happy job training, where I'll sit down and teach these kids customer service and the values that we have. And then we'll actually bring them to other things than doing work in order for them to get their community service. So this is the kid in the red on the right is the same kid in the bottom right in that black hoodie. And he was helping us at an event, and he was out there handling chickens after only one real exposure to chickens. And I could trust him doing that because of what we're doing. So this is where we're at right now. This is one of the locations really where we're at, and we're doing some of our program. I turned a 200 square foot garage into a small educational space and a model where we're showing different ways of doing aquaponics and hydroponics. I have some deep water culture. I have some NFT, and I have some flood and drain in here. And if you go to check out some other presentations, I'm sure some other presenters will unpack those more, but for sake of time, we've got all these different things that we're able to use to support our educational and operational aspirations over at our chicken farm. But we are also involved with a gentleman not too far away from where we are that has allowed us to use this space where he has converted a bunch of different shipping containers into this really awesome agricultural stuff. And I'll unpack that a little bit later on in the presentation and share some of what he's doing. But we have this space where we're using containers and other areas to grow out of leafy greens, microgreens, and some of the aquaponics grow out as well. Now, aquaponics in the coop, because I go a little bit beyond just inside of our chicken operations with our aquaponics, but it allows us to produce live feed all year around. And it allows us to do this with significantly less water and less land than soil agriculture. And we're starting to tease out that it's even more efficient than some of the hydroponic methods that many of us may be familiar with. And we're seeing significantly higher yields than I ever expected. So on that far left, what you're seeing there is a space that's about 7 square feet or about 12 cubic feet of space. And we're able to get about 12 pounds of live feed every single day because of a rotational program that I'm doing in the way that we're cultivating our feed. And we're able to get that in that middle there every single day. And you'll see it's a sprouted feed that's just shy of being super green. But the other thing that we're able to do with our aquaponics is we're able to get more eggs on a regular, consistent basis, which leans into the higher yields. And then on the far right, we actually can take our waste product from our microgreen operations and then any leftover or not well-grown stuff and just give it out to our chickens. So we're able to really offset our feed costs in these other ways. And it leads into having lower production costs, if that makes sense. So how does this apply to all of us out there? Well, we're able to use the water to grow crops and raise livestock beyond fish. So some of what I want to be able to unpack is these innovative ways and able to use aquaponics beyond possibly just produce or some of the aquatic livestock that we are familiar with. And we're able to do this for the livestock using a lot less space to grow both of those things and to be able to feed that livestock using almost zero net energy and zero net waste. And we're able to cut feed costs. Animal agriculture is a huge area of our industry, and it's often overlooked that feed costs are an important aspect of all of our farmers, and that we need to be able to control our production and cut our consumption costs. So again, what I want to cover is how this is saving us water, how this is saving the environment, and that aquaponic chickening really gives us more bang for our buck. So I mentioned that I published a book. Now, one of the reasons I published the book was to try to give back to our mission more. I wanted to give back about agricultural entrepreneurship, and I wanted to give back in an area where I was less familiar with that would make a lot of impact. And so that is for us in the United States and here in Colorado, that looks like using and utilizing the resources at Weld County Extension. So just real quick, Extension is a component of many colleges that reaches out to farmers and ranchers and researchers and helps us all get better by sharing information and tools and resources. So I wanted to be able to do that to help farmers save water. Now, like many of you out there, I recognize these amazing aspects of aquaponics, of hydroponics, and I wanted to say, hey, Mr. Soil Farmer, hey, Mr. Cow Farmer, let's use these to get better, if that makes sense. I knew that here in Colorado, drought made all of our farmers have a really, really hard time, but specifically the ones raising animals struggled to get high quality feed, and it hit their bottom line. And many of these farmers, when they can't get proper feed, they end up having to kill a significant amount of their animals. And that just literally breaks my heart because they're going out there and approaching these problems using the same traditional water saving methods that they've always had, but yet lamenting that there's all of these problems. They're using government programs, which we have seen that don't really work. We're improving sprinkler technology, which is only a Band-Aid solution. But again, I knew that hydroponics saves a significant amount of water compared to what these other people were doing. But what I didn't know was how much money how much time maybe could hydroponics, aquaponics save these farmers and ranchers? And I use the word hydroponics to just kind of come up with a little bit bigger umbrella. So forgive me for that word there. But I also knew that we could grow really, really great plants. So why are we not using these technologies? Why are we not using aquaponics and hydroponics to help the farmers and ranchers in our areas? And what I learned was that agriculture, animal agriculture, is hugely important. It contributes a significant amount to our economy, both locally, nationally, and globally. So I also learned that farmers needed solutions and that farmers all over the world are doing it, but no one was talking about it in our area. Not like this, which is why I went out and wrote this book. And it was because of this dude named Josh, who was struggling with his cattle. He runs this ranch called Ciardulo Ranch, and he's a regenerative farmer. So he was a soil farmer that really helped me have this first aha. He runs a herd up at a really famous dude ranch called Sylvandale. And I wanted to share with you, after having this conversation with him, how this is saving water. And specifically, we like to talk about this thing called the water use efficiency. And I want to talk about how it saves land by talking about this concept called land sparing. So using comparative yields of crops in order to really illustrate some of those things. So I've mentioned before, hydroponic and aquaponic systems save a significant amount of water compared to soil agriculture. And so I am seeing that here we're able to grow the same amount of feed for our chickens using 50 gallons, which would take 1,000 gallons of water to get a equivalent amount of feed, which is a lot, right? That is a significant difference on that. And we use this by looking at this by using a ratio which we're calling the water use efficiency, or how much water does it take to grow a certain weight of crop. So here in the United States, we tend to use how many gallons per pound, or we do liters per kilograms internationally. And these numbers here are just ratios for you to see this, but as an example, we use 40 units of water when we're growing barley in the soil, and when we're doing it here aquaponically, we're using 2 units of water. When we're doing clover, 40 units of water in the soil versus 2 units in the aquaponics. I don't have good data yet for corn, and cowpea, which is really popular now for no-till agriculture. 100 units of soil water compared to 2 units of aquaponics water. And then sunflower, it's about 40. I don't have that completely nailed down yet, but to 1 unit of water, which is significant, right? This is a system here by a company called Fodder Tech. They're able to grow a significant amount of feed in this space. So they're using 200 gallons of water to grow a ton of feed on a daily basis. Yeah, on a daily basis. So there's a cycle and a circulation in there that allows them to do that. No chemical fertilizers, all recirculated, recycled water. Pretty cool, right? So I like to say that hydroponics is our hero. I grew up with Captain Planet in my life, so a little bit of fun things for us. But just to show a specific aspect of this here, to unpack it. Now, this is something that many of us may have heard of and some of us may not have, but I'm featuring part of an aquaponics system, which would be considered a decoupled aspect of a hydroponic system in a vertical setup. So this is a vertical part of our aquaponics system in that Wyoming farm. And the point of me showing you this is that it's modular and that we are using almost 3,000 square feet of space on 500 square feet of a footprint. So a significant amount of grow out space on a small footprint. And being modular, meaning we can move it to different areas and adapt it for our certain areas. And again, it's not using any fertilizer. So this machine specifically right there can produce 750 pounds of dry matter, meaning it was live feed and then they dried it. So it's significantly more live feed than 750 pounds of forage. So again, this is just another view of this system here to just give you a little bit perspective. It's a larger system and it can give you a kind of an idea of how big these systems are. That one can do almost twice as much. And when you put a bunch of these systems together, on the right, you can see the illustration. This unit, 12 of these units rather, are able to replace 500 acres of heavy equipment and irrigation for a dairy or beef operation. And that's what they are targeting these types of systems for. And we've been able to really start to get ourselves in to illustrate how the aquaponics integrates into this, which I'm going to talk to you on the next few slides here. And then I've been able to work with some of the other kids, just to give you a little example of what we've been able to do, is we've been able to even take kids that don't know how to do aquaponics, traditional FFA kids, and no offense to any FFA people out there, just traditionally more from a soil perspective. And in days, we were able to get them build one of the systems from the aquaponics source, the aquabundance system, and an NFT system. And I just told them basically what to do, and they were able to do it themselves, which was really, really great. And this is just another example of a modular system that this company FarmBox makes. So the land sparing aspects of this are to show you that we're using 90% less space, and there are greater yields for the crop. So the numbers that we typically look at that, and I briefly said that, are looking at the average tons of dry matter per acre of crop. So those are the equivalencies that they use to compare what we're doing in hydroponics, what we're doing in aquaponics, or what they're doing in soil and stuff like that. So just to give you some context, 7, we'll say acres in soil versus 3 acres in aquaponics to get a ton of alfalfa. 25 acres in the soil, 2 acres in aquaponics to get a ton of barley. 7 acres of soil, 3 acres in aquaponics to get a ton of clover. 15 acres of soil, 5 acres of aquaponics to get a ton of corn. Same with cowpea. Sunflower, we're still trying to figure out, as I put the question mark in the last time. So this is another way of illustrating that there are significant savings. And while I don't have the math to say that word significant, you can see these numbers are hugely different compared to each other. So there's a gentleman that is growing 400 head of cattle on about 300 acres of pasture space using this one unit, which is significant. He's actually down in Texas, so he has to use a lot of land traditionally just for one cow-calf pair. It takes about 10 acres per cow. So if you just do that math, that's about 4,000 acres he needs. So we're using significantly less space than these others out there. Now, I am seeing the time there, and I recognize that I spent a little bit of time up front really trying to share with you that to get to the crux of this, that hydroponic fodder uses a lot less water and land than traditional soil agriculture. Now, I'm going to just jump into this, and I'm looking at the time here, and I don't want to go over and get kicked off without giving you some of the things. But one of the aspects of what we've been able to unpack is this idea of saving the amount of fertilizer that we are dumping into the ocean. And there is a significant amount of fertilizer, over 8 million pounds per year, gets dumped just into the Gulf of Mexico. And that's just the Gulf of Mexico, to create these huge dead zones from all of the pollution that goes in there. And there's a lot of different reasons. But the EPA is saying that about 10% of all of these big picture greenhouse gases come from agriculture. So the big idea here is that we have a responsibility as individuals involved in agriculture to really be discussing and talking about the environmental implications and savings of aquaponics operations. Why are they saving the environment? How are they saving the environment? And what can we do as owners, operators, and researchers to better understand and educate others out there and implement these technologies into our life? I didn't know how much the hydroponics could truly help the environment, but I knew that if it used less resources, why are we not bringing these up during climate change conversations? So my big clarion call to action before we depart today to take away with all of this, to say to you, is that we have a responsibility as participants, as advocates of aquaponics, or just those of us that are starting to dip our toes in the sand or the soil of aquaponics. We have a responsibility to talk about these in the larger context and larger conversations. And I will say that I am not hearing us talk about these things with our political leaders and others of industry enough, because we're still using the old broken ways of government programs, of improved center pivot sprinkler technologies in order to really address these larger climate change avenues. So I urge those of you out there to really, really go to your local authorities, go to your local constituencies, go out and share about all of these things that I've started to present to you today, that I've alluded to, that you're going to get to learn over the next 3 days about aquaponics. There is a lot of really great information, and I mentioned some of the things that I've done in my past to help inspire you to go do some of those things. If you're interested in the islands in aquaponics, there's a lot of presentations about that. If you're interested in how this affects our economy, there's some stuff about circular economy. If you're interested in how aquaponics is involved in wastewater management, there are presentations that talk about how we're using this to be more sustainable. So there's a lot of things out there for you as a learner or as a researcher or as another presenter if you've had the opportunity. I appreciate all of your time, and I thank those of you out there. I am going to just real quick jump to the end of the presentation, so forgive the blaze of stuff here, but this is just to give you a thank you stuff so that you have some of my contact information, and that we can still facilitate some of this conversation with people out there. And you can see that I honestly love to talk a lot about what I do and that we've got. And fortunately, I was able to cover a lot of this without giving you all of the imagery that I thought was absolutely necessary. But I want to leave you with Ethan and Shay are our farmers that we've had a lot of success with. And we are just tickled to be able to help them because we're able to really see families grow, like this little girl here who never touched a chicken in her life has actually taught me how to be a better chicken handler than I could ever imagine, because we've gone out and had conversations about how we're using aquaponics in these really, really interesting and weird ways. So again, thank you again for listening to how we are using aquaponics in the Coop, but specifically how it's allowing us to think outside the soil so that we can become better stewards of our community, of our environment, and of others out there in our aquaponics world. so that we can be the best stewards that we can be. So thank you again. I know that we don't have much time and there are other presenters out there that you may want to go to see. However, I will stay for as long as we can, as long as the room will let me stay live. I will sit here and answer any questions. I am going to kind of take my gaze off my presentation and go over to the session chat, which I see over here, and I've seen things come over on there. And if you're still here, and I will read out the question and just shout it out, so maybe it will answer some of what you guys are interested in as well. So just real quick, wow, you guys asked a lot of questions, so thank you so much. And good morning. Thank you, everybody from around the world. I see people from Virginia, from Ohio, from the Philippines, from Iberia, from the peninsula. Sweet, you're living in Sweden. Guy in UK doing ducks with aquaponics. I hearted that one earlier, but I wanted to shout that out. So yes, aquaponics and ducks, they're at the very beginning of the presentation. Someone was shouting out that there. So let's go in. I saw a couple questions, and I want to just address that with this. We've got some people from Barbados and Mexico, New Mexico tropical. So the Barbados, the islands thing there again. Yeah, I actually learned most of my aquaponics from island people. I learned extensively from the work of James Ricosi, so the Virgin Island work, and then out in at the University of Hawaii. So let's see, a couple questions. Sean, have you, so forgive me if I pronounce your name wrong, Elshan, but you asked, Sean, have you tried using aquaponics recirculating aquaculture water on irrigating a pasture? Yes, actually, I have used it out on a pasture where we're at right now. I originally got started with some of my helping farmers because of a farmer on Oahu that was running a nursery. He had a traditional nursery with mostly fruit crops and stone fruits. And he was growing tilapia just in big, normal recirculating aquaculture. And in order to get rid of his wastewater, he was doing his water exchanges, just dumping it out on his orchard. And he very quickly saw how much money he was saving, how amazing those plants were. So we have used that idea in general. If I'm doing any kind of recirculating aquaculture, or if I have to do any kind of water change, I will destine that water to go to the garden. I'll destine it to go to our compost pile, or if we're out at the farm, it's now got a setup for the irrigation to dump it out towards the pasture. So if I have to do any of that, now, as of right now, we haven't had to do that but a couple of times. We had to do a big water change out, so we did that way. But the pasture looks really, really great there. So I hope that answers your question. If you've got any more, please, any of you as well are welcome to email me, sean@bloominghealthfarms.com. So Sean, like Sean Connery, @bloominghealthfarms.com. I see Hannah Park asked me, are you able to save seeds to replant, or are you buying seeds? So that looks a little differently depending on how we are, which crop we're growing. If we're growing a traditional vegetable crop in our aquaponic system, which we do grow a couple, we are propagating on site. So we grow tomatoes, we grow green onions, and I mentioned the microgreens, but I'm going to sidestep that just real quick. And then we grow duckweed for part of our chicken feed formulation. So with those plants, I'll save our tomato seeds and we'll rebreed them here on the farm. With the onion seeds, I'll let a portion of our onion seed go to seed, and then we'll save seed for those onions. And then for the duckweed, it's actually one of the fastest flowering plants. And so we just harvest a percentage of it and keep a certain percentage of the duckweed in the system so that I can just repropagate on a regular basis, if that makes sense. Now, for the microgreens and for the things that we use for our chickens for the fodder, yes, we actually go out and source those specifically. I go out and source organic grains and seeds to do our feed formulation. And one of the reasons that I do that is that we are currently right now on a small scale, and we don't produce any of our own seeds and scale or anything like that, as you can imagine. So one thing that I didn't really get to touch on because I overtalked and talked too much was this this idea of being able to use vertical systems to grow out seeds, to do seed production in aquaponics and in other areas on mass scale rather than relying on soil agriculture. Because one of the challenges I saw in Hawaii and elsewhere is that no matter what, no matter who we are, no matter how much we want to talk about aquaponics as a solution, as this amazing thing, we're completely reliant on the seed man at the end of the day. And if the seed man is the guy controlling, the thing, right now, the only way, and I say only because I may be unfamiliar, so challenge me or tell me I'm wrong, but we're limited by the fact that the soil producers are producing all of our seeds. So I'd like to see an aquaponic operator, a hydroponic operator, or whatever the label may be. I'd like to see us shift our seed production indoors or under lights or in controlled environmental agriculture. So now, as far as how much carbon, Hannah asked another question, how much carbon is locked away by this method compared to crop rotation? I have a couple research papers where I can show you the actual carbon sequestration potential. I do not have that data memorized off the top of my head, and I don't want to do an injustice for that. But essentially, they're basically able to say that you're able to spare about 100 acres of land per acre of hydroponics farms, about what we're seeing on that. And again, I'm using the vague terms, but Hannah, if you want to email me and open up that email chain, anybody else as well, and I can start sharing some of those research papers that I've got. And also for any of you that are interested in thinking outside the soil, I've put in the back here almost every single research article that I read, top level research articles that I read are in this book for us to be able to explore and have those conversations. So there's like 136 citations in there, just so that other researchers out there, I know you guys value this stuff, have a place to look, and also so you don't have to do the digging through the other research papers that I ended up doing already. So just save you some time to go through there. So Hannah, if I don't get to you soon enough, go ahead and get that book and check out some of those things in there, because I talk about some of those things. And I would love to explore some of those conversations about the how to improve pasture land and make it more sustainable and stuff like that. And if you're maybe not familiar with some of our regenerative farmers out there, we can unpack some of those conversations as well. Now I see Jim asked me a little bit after the presentation, have I ever tried a duckweed? So I think I may have answered that already by saying that we do grow duckweed, and we are cultivating a few different species of duckweed and the duckweed moss, that floating fern. And I'm actually doing some selective breeding of duckweed. Now, one thing that we do with our aquaponic system and our operation, and I think I didn't really get to say this fully, is that we actually take the water, the leftover water from our sprouting process, and essentially dump it right back in to our aquaponic system. And we first dump it into our duckweed trough. Now, for those of you that have experienced duckweed, the name duckweed is very telltale of what it is. It is a weed. And if you're growing aquaponics, many of us are out there like, no, duckweed, don't grow duckweed, because it gets in everything. It gets in the pipes. It takes out and sucks out all of the nutrients. So for our system, our duckweed is actually in a drain to waste system, meaning it's in a trough where it gets the last mile of water, and we just let it suck the water out, and any water loss comes from evapotranspiration, if that makes sense. So that duckweed is not allowed to go backwards into the system, because I don't want it going into our grow beds or really into our fish tank and stuff like that, and then just going everywhere and proliferating. But we'll go selectively harvest it and then partially dry it out and then add it to our sprouting mix on a routine basis right now. It's a supplement. So we use hydroponic fodder for our main feed, and then we use conventional organic feed and some other supplementation, almost in like a buffet style. We have some different feeders out there where the chickens get to do this stuff. Hannah, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of research which has been done out there in these avenues, but I found that a lot of the research with fodder specifically seems to come from outside the United States. And for right, wrong, or indifferently, sometimes academia overlooks non-first world country research as being, having a certain amount of weight. And so one of the other reasons for putting 136 citations in there is to kind of show like there's people all over the world with really great minds and teams doing really great work. Specifically in the Middle East, there's a lot of research coming out of Jordan, coming out of Iran for aquaponics and hydroponics, because it's an arid area and they are really interested in land saving and water saving mechanisms. And people, yeah, Kenneth, there are quite a few papers, and I would love any other papers that you may know about using duckweed or azolla or any other animal feed. For those of you that are keyed into that animal feed conversation, again, please do reach out to me. I would love to facilitate that. I have a questionnaire that's pretty robust that helps tease out some of those questions and answers we may have. But the other thing is there are a few companies out there that are really starting to get into this even more so. And one of them that I think is fascinating that's using duckweed is a company called Phyto, Fyto. And they are in Silicon Valley, using duckweed, azolla, and a proprietary blend of things that they've selected for, and mostly feeding dairy cattle. And the cattlemen and the dairy farmers are like getting some of the best milk they've ever seen in their life. So the milk fat and the composition of those amino acids in the duckweed are so amazing. And yeah, they're seeing a lot of that. I've seen Jim out there, for those of you that may just be watching, and then I'm gonna jump back to what Hannah said there too, because that's good. So Jim said that he's been feeding wet duckweed to his chickens as part of the birds allotment, or what they're getting on a regular basis, and his birds will pick out the duckweed before they even will go drink water. And I'm seeing the same thing. So it's funny you say that, Jim. We have been feeding sprouts and these different the duckweed combinations for almost 2 years now, and it's cool. I love hearing that people like you've been doing it a lot longer. So it's even neater to hear that while it's not a huge aha from the industry perspective, more of us need to talk about it, or no one will know about it. And we see the same thing. Like as soon as we go out there with our sprouts or our hydroponic and aquaponic feeds, our chickens abandon the old traditional stuff, and it's really good stuff. We buy like some of the highest quality organic chicken kibble and ground milled feed out there, and the chickens love it. But as soon as we go out there, they abandon it. And we have since been calling what we make chicken crack, because the chickens abandon it immediately. And we love that word, chicken crack. Just like I use the word pimp, or we're pimping homesteads. We use those words because I do find myself more and more getting involved with kids in the criminal justice system. So using some of the language that they're familiar with and then quickly reframing it allows us to get really, really great engagement. So we call this our chicken crack, because the chickens are literally addicted to it. Hannah mentioned too that she has 2 systems. So this might be really applicable to those of us that are still here. Hannah has 2 systems, a temperate and a tropical one. And her water goes into the temperate one first, and then and then that water is used for water changes in the second system. So she's asking in the bigger picture if she's able to use duckweed. Would she put duckweed in the first one, or would she put duckweed in the second one? So without really diagnosing it specifically, it sounds like what you would do is you would put it into the second one. Now, I mentioned that my duckweed doesn't drain to waste, and now Jim might also have some really good solutions since he's been doing it for a long time as well. So Jim, please jump in, and then I do got to get on to the next event here in a minute, so I will have to end it with any things there. I saw one more thing pop in from Jerry there, and I want to just share that with you guys there. But Hannah, again, take a look at where the end of your system is and whatever the drain to waste and stuff like that, and put the duckweed in the most downstream system where you're less likely to get the recirculation back through the entirety of your system. So something that might be decoupled, or possibly create a decoupled system where you can just do some of that water overflow and stuff like that into the duckweed system, if that makes sense. Jerry wanted to share with us that he lives in a tropical agriculture. And I believe, Jerry is from Manila, so Jerry's in the Philippines. So in his tropical climate, and I got to see this in Hawaii too, that they're able to produce a lot of duckweed. And so again, that would probably be one of the biggest takeaways for this duckweed portion of our FAQ, is that if you live in a temperate or warm or tropical climate and are not growing duckweed, you may consider the avenues that duckweed could offer beyond just being a problem plant in an aquaponics system. So maybe you are in a small space and you want to grow duckweed. I bet you there's a neighbor down the street or somebody next door growing backyard chickens. Perhaps you're able to offer them something in exchange, eggs for duckweed. Maybe you can sell feed. I don't know. I mean, these are some of the things that we get to talk about with our homesteaders and our farmers, and things that I would love to continue to talk about more and more as we go. So please, for a few of you that are straggling on the end of the FAQ, thank you again. Please go out, ask a lot of really critical questions of the presenters over the next 3 days, and do your best to give back what it is that you've been given through your experiences of being in this industry, but also for those of you that may have other information from other areas of your life, like especially those of you that are new to our people, welcome. But we want to hear those nerdy, cool things that you're doing that may not have nothing to do with aquaponics, because you guys actually inspire us to be better than we could ever hope to be. So again, enjoy this, jump in all the rooms, sign up for what you can, contribute, comment, take any of the polls, answer any of their Q&As, and again, have a wonderful and lovely day. Thank you, and take care.